Okay, good evening, everyone. The internet's getting screwy, not gonna lie. I'm wondering how long it will stay up if it stays up. I apologize for dropping midstream. I don't know how many people will be seeing this, but if we get a few more people jumping in here, we will continue. Otherwise, we will have to set a stream up for tomorrow on a Saturday. We haven't done that before. But yeah, let's see if anybody comes on in here. They were asking me of whether I wanted to start my own coffee brew in the last one, and I was telling them, I'm not against it. I'm not. I've actually liked the idea and the thought of it, but at the same time, it's not something right now Working Dragon Mystic can afford to actually do. Um, Hopefully, though, if we continue to grow and everything, that will be something we can do. Hey, Billy, glad you could make it. We're having some internet issues. I'm hoping it's stable now. If we do end up dropping again, just so we know ahead of time, if we drop again, I'm going to go ahead and call it a night, but we will. I'll do another stream. I'll do a live MCH tomorrow on Saturday if that happens. Okay. Um, we'll see. They're claiming it's fixed. They're claiming. I don't know if I trust them or anything like that, but they're claiming it's fixed. So we'll go. We'll see how it goes, right? On the upside, I was able to refill my coffee. But yeah, if you guys are serious and you all want me to try and get my own coffee blend or something, we got to grow the community so I can do it. I have looked into it, and it's pricey to get something like that started. Other options would be I got to piggyback off another roaster to see if I can partner with them. That would be the only other option I got. And I don't know which roaster I would go to who might actually give a rat's patootie about me. I really don't, because it's got to be a roaster I believe in, and they got to believe in the work I do. And sometimes that can be tricky because, yeah. Um, discipline. The Lord Dionysus have been help a friend with his dream control. I have a lot of fun. Show him dream control. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Dreams aren't really one of the areas I spend a lot of time in because they are so unreliably interpretive related. And as far as like control, I spend more time with conscious astral travel and soul travel. That's just where I've put my time. I like that reliability of the mechanic, and I've never had good reliability with dreams, even on the interpretive side of it. It's never been my cup of tea, but I'm definitely glad you're enjoying it. I know a lot of people who do enjoy it. Mel, thank you for joining us again. Sorry about the internet drop. Hopefully, it doesn't happen again. Um, so I've been getting a lot of messages asking about the Goetic series, and I'll be honest with you. I have forgot to do a Goetic video in a while because we have been juggling so many different changes. Many of you know that there's been a lot of censorship concerns and stuff like that, and those are all things that I have been having to juggle and make sure, because I don't want this channel to disappear. There's a lot of things that I want to make sure are secure. That's one reason we've put work into the locals uh, community over there. And I realize there are a lot of things that have slipped through the cracks while we have been doing that, and I do apologize. For those interested in the Goetic series, I do have a note now. I'm going to try and start weaving those back into the streams, especially now that we're at 2 streams a week on YouTube here. We're going to move MCH to a couple streams a week, I think. Mondays and Fridays, I think, is where we currently got it. So those will be coming. I do apologize for the delay. And for those who have asked about the October content that I had planned, well, due to the fact that everything that did happened, I'll be truthfully honest. I don't know how much of it I'm going to get done because, yeah, my entire schedule went bottom ass over tea kettle on that one. Um, so we're just going to have to move forward and see what we can get from here. Honestly and truly. hopefully you all understand. I think y'all do, because I got so many well wishes from this and everything, and the time, and I do appreciate those. So if you got questions, throw them in here. Let's get this going before we get disconnected again, right? The weather here is crazy. We get the power fixed, but we still got windstorms. And apparently the internet's having issues dealing with the windstorms. I don't think it's raining. No, not raining. Just windy. And considering wind is like typical in this area, you figure they'd be able to handle wind, but I don't know. Andrew, good to see you. Yeah, we're here. I am back. Trying to get back into the swing of things. I do, like I said, I'm very, very grateful for Jade, Born Oldest, and Immortal for doing the streams and everything they can to help give me the time I needed. But I am glad to be back. And getting back into the swing of things, I think is going to do me some good. I really do. Elizabeth, good to see you. Welcome. And I know some people actually, like, they've said that you could hope that me and Jade could co-host a MCH at some point. I'm looking at options to do it. The problem is actually on YouTube. Like, I could do a co-host with Jade over on Rumble very, very easily the way it's set up. With YouTube's a little harder, though. I was looking, and I found something on my phone. Like, if I go live via the phone live, but not the like computer live, it seems to have a possible option to do it. So I'm going to attempt to set it up through that and see if we might be able to do it. I'm going to do some experimentations. I just got to get Jade's free time so she can have an experiment with it. But it might be something we can look at doing very soon, hopefully. But yeah. And Jade mentioned, I think both, Born and Jade have mentioned possibly wanting to continue doing some of their content themselves, like Jade's little pop-ups. I thought that was a pretty cool idea when she did that. And Born's enjoyed doing content over at Locals. And for somebody who's very nervous in front of a camera, and I do mean nervous in front of a camera, I'm very proud of him and how far he's come, and the fact that he wants to continue doing it and sharing these thoughts and ideals. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does. And when I say nervous, people, like I'm afraid of cameras, so I get where he's coming from. But for those who don't know, back when we had the Bob ad at the start of the video, Bornoldus actually did the voice for Bob. He done a really great job with it. And even though it was a very short read, it took us a very, very long time to record it because he gets so nervous. So the fact that he was able to get on here, share his thoughts, and start talking and opening up, I was very proud of him. It's not easy to break down that wall. It's not. So yeah. Discipline of Lord Dionysus. What is your favorite field of paganism? If you mean religion, I don't really do religion. I really don't. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a religious person. I don't really even find myself too spiritual. I practice magic. Paganism being more, it's a religion, so I don't really step into it. And I'll be honest with you, truth be told, I've found some of the shittiest, toxiest people in religions in general. Now, I don't try to judge religions by shitty, toxic people. I really don't. So if I was to pick a favorite field of paganism, it would be the one where I've encountered the least shitty, toxic people. And at least for me, I can't speak of other people, can't speak for other people, but at least for me, it's got to be within the Norse heathenry communities where I've found the least shitty people. Mostly in the Norse heathen community, I found some of the nicer people. That's not to say, like, everyone knows that there's a section of heathenry that are a bunch of racist shitbags. Not talking about those people, not talking about them. But at the same time, yeah, I've honestly not had a good experience with paganism. I'll be honest with you. That's just the nicest way to say it. Uh, that's the nicest way to say it. And to this day, I do a thing. I don't judge a group. Okay, I don't look at a group. Like I don't look at Wicca and say Wiccans are bad people. I don't look at ceremonial magicians and say ceremonial. I don't look at Druids, but I don't look at like Jewish people and say they're bad people. I don't look at Christians and say they're bad people. I don't do that. I look at the individual and I hold the individual accountable, right? Now, it is true if you're of a group that gathers in like regularly, like, like let's say you're in a very specific Wiccan coven, and that coven doesn't do anything to regulate, control, and stop toxic or racist behavior, for example. I don't blame Wicca. I would blame the coven, if that makes sense. So that would be the general viewpoint I take. I hold the person responsible. And if you're working as a group, I hold the group, you know, what does the group actually uphold, if that makes sense. As far as path, minus the religion, if you're looking at it, path-wise, it'd probably be Norse. I definitely have a love for Norse mythology, the Norse entities, the viewpoint that the Norse take on ingenuity, self-reliance, accountability, which is honestly something you see in a lot of other pantheons. But for whatever reason, especially in modern times, the Norse is one of the few paths where we really see it up front and holding true, where everyone else is trying to find excuses like, oh, it's not my fault, it's this, or well, it's not my fault, this star sign, or it's not my fault, the spirits did this. It's like they're trying to find excuses to get away from being accountable for their actions. And I'm starting to see it in the Norse path, which I don't like, but by and large, the Norse path is the one that I've come to enjoy the most. If I'm looking at the more traditional paths, if you will, um, Stoic's a good word. I do like Stoicism. Like the philosophy. Like I do study Stoicism. Many of you will have even noticed that on the Mage Minded series, there's a lot of Stoic ideals and stuff that I share in there. But I don't necessarily know if that counts as a pagan path. That's more of a philosophical concept. Though I'd say there's a debate there that could be. So yeah, I would say for me in the traditional concepts, it'd probably be Norse. Definitely not pro anything to deal with division or racism, though. Let me make that very clear. If you have anything to do with trying to divide people by gender or skin color or anything, just fuck off. I ain't got time for you. I ain't got time for hate like that. So that's just kind of it. Have your own spirituality. I mean, spirituality, I say you're closer to getting me in on because, like, when it comes to me personally, I don't view myself spiritual. I don't. Okay. But at the same time, like I've had this discussion with a lot of people. So this is actually a pretty cool question you guys have gotten up in on. There are certain things I follow as guiding principles in my life and in my practice. Okay. We know that when it comes to magic, I'm results driven. If it's not yielding results, I have no use for it. Okay. If it's not yielding results, it's a bigger waste of time than just masturbation. It really is. Or playing make believe. It serves no purpose if you're not yielding a functional result. Because there's a lot of time and effort that goes into doing magic, and that's time and effort that if it's not yielding results, to me, it's truly wasted. There's something better I could be doing with my time. So I'm very data and results driven in my practice. Okay. Now, does that mean that I think magic is some mystical spiritual energy throughout the multiverse that can accomplish anything? I actually don't know. I did a video, is magic a placebo effect or self-hypnosis? And in that video, I think I talked about the fact that I honestly have no genuine proof that magic does this, this, or this. What I do have is I do these actions. I'm getting these results, and these results are benefiting me. So I continue to practice. If I wasn't getting those results, I wouldn't continue to practice. Is that spiritual? I don't know. Same thing with dragon magic. I love dragon magic. I love Norse, and I do work within them. Is that spiritual? I don't know. You can call it spiritual. A lot of people do. I view the scientific method with very high regard. I love the fact that science is willing to take in new data and admit it was wrong when the new data comes in. That's one thing I love. Most spiritual and religious people are never willing to admit they're wrong for any reason, no matter what. I don't like that. Stoicism, which was mentioned here by Billy, um, I love those concepts because it's a way to view the world, to organize your thoughts, and to pursue any goal you may choose or have in a manner that I do find refreshing and advantageous all around. I really do. And it's something I do meditate on quite a bit. Now, of course, there's a lot of different warrior philosophies out there, whether it be Bushido or any of the others. And Bondi Sanders is an individual. He writes a few things, and actually, I think I want to say Modern Bushido is his book. He talks about a lot of the concepts and moralities that warriors often meditate on. Again, that's something else that I've talked about on here, and I'm wanting to go into more. Um, so those are principles that I also cling to. I don't know if that's spiritual. I don't know if you all would count it as spiritual. I don't really put a label on it. If it's makes sense. Like I try to live my life honorably. I try to live a life that respects my viewpoints. I try to live a life where I can live freely to live, and I try to respect other people's freedoms. I live a life where I hold myself accountable, and I expect other people to be accountable for their actions and mistakes. Now, that doesn't mean if you make a mistake, oh, how dare you? No, mistakes happen. They're a natural part of the process. Like if you wish to succeed at anything, you are going to fail more than you succeed. It's part of the process of reaching that success point. And those are honestly what guide me more than anything, more than any what most people traditionally think of as a spiritual path or a religious path. Those are the things that really guide me. Is that my own spirituality? It could be. It could be. I've never viewed it that way, but I know a lot of people who do view it that way, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's actually an interesting topic. And like when somebody said, views it that way, I don't really get bent out of shape because I don't care. Um, uh, would you say philosophical belief? Definitely philosophical belief. It definitely easily fits into that philosophical. Um, it's just I do have so much respect for different spiritual beliefs and concepts. Like, let's be honest, I'm probably one of the big pagan channels that catches so much shit between the fact that I have no issues with Christians. Um, and I've been very open. Like, I got countless friends who are Christian. They know what I do. They know my practice. They know I used to be Wiccan. I used to consider myself pagan. And at no point did I ever catch any hate. I've caught more hate from pagans than any other single group in my life. Um, though I will say there is a secondary group that is creeping up on that. And I'd say they would pass it if it wasn't for there were so many pagans in that secondary group. But that's aside the point. But that's not to say I've never met a shitty Christian. I've met plenty of shitty Christians. That's why I try to look at the individual, not their spirituality, not their belief, not any of that, right? I think we've gotten into a point where we judge people by um, labels before we ever get to know them. And I think that's just bad. Um, what do you mean? What are the options between different relationships between pagan? I mean, pagan is anyone who worships or reveres nature or any of the older belief systems, largely believed to be outside the Judeo-Christian, though the categorizations are very, very different. So, in a lot of ways, your pathways can almost be dang near infinite. And I by no means claim to know every possible pathway out there that could be labeled pagan. um, let's see. Is it boy Matt? We'll see if I can answer this. Let's see what it is. How can you evolve your intuition to be able to be more receptive towards certain energies, like, for example, becoming better at divinations, etc.? Okay, I would recommend going over to workingdragonmystic.com. Over there, you'll see the courses tab. Click that and check out the Arcane Senses course. It's a class that's absolutely free, by the way. And developing your arcane senses. So you say becoming more intuitive. Your arcane senses function just like your normal senses. It's about using them. It's about paying attention. It's not about becoming intuitive. It's about paying attention. Um, and one of the things I've told people is if I take someone, say, from New York City and drop them in the middle of the Appalachian woods and on those mountains, they're going to freak out because there's sounds, there's smells, there's constant things just assaulting their senses that they're going to be overwhelmed by those things, even though they're used to the noisy streets of New York, right? And there's a lot of things they're going to miss because they're not able to focus and pick up on the things because they're not used to this environment, right? Same thing. You take an Appalachian boy, drop him in the middle of New York City. He's going to be overwhelmed by those sights, those smells, those sounds in the same way because it's an environment he's not necessarily used to. Now, yes, there's the argument that has been made that someone who hunts and spends time in the woods and everything could adapt slightly better because their brains trained to look for minor details, and that can be made. But at the same time, I know a lot of city guys who they've trained a lot of the same skills. So that's on average, I would say yes, on average, the skill sets don't transition as easily on average, but it's still possible. And when we're talking about our arcane senses, the reason I bring this up is because they work the same. You apply them. And the more you practice, the more you apply them, the better they get. Same thing, like if you've ever heard anyone talk about selective hearing, how we learn how to tune people out, or how we learn to tune out environments. The biggest thing with our arcane senses, it's not a gift. There's nothing special about us. Every human on the freaking planet has them. The only difference is we have taught ourselves over time to tune them out, whether it be out of fear, whether it be out of people telling us we're imagining things, whatever the reason may be, we have chosen to tune them out. Just like if you were to take me right now and stick me in a nightclub and try to talk to me just 5 foot away from me, odds are I'm not going to be able to hear a damn thing you're saying because I'm not in that environment anymore. I'm not in places with loud music, constant chatter, and all this. Same thing with most sports bars are so loud that I'm going to have trouble hearing you because I'm not there. I no longer have the ability to tune out all the background noise and static. Take someone who goes there once or twice a week on the regular to that sports bar, to that nightclub. They're going to have no issues having that conversation because they've trained their ears to tune it out. Same concept. So it's really about learning to allow yourself to hear it, focus on what you're doing, and apply it. Just utilize it more. And the way you allow yourself to hear it is you start doing it. The more you practice, the more you pay attention to it, you're retraining your brain to pay attention to that detail. Anyone who's ever tried to take up hunting or camping, you know, First time in the woods, especially on a solo camp, it's freaky as hell. You're hearing every little noise. You're like, what's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? Oh, what's that? But with time, you know what certain things are. You know what certain things sound like. And you understand what they are. And you start, because you're exposed to it, because you've been doing it. And practice makes perfect here. In all honesty, mate. Hope that helps you a little bit. Let's see. Thomas Lodger, I think too many times. I think in modern times, too many people stack their political beliefs on top of their spiritual beliefs. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I know, especially where I'm currently at right now, because you all know we get stationed in different places. Right now, people will judge you by your political belief. Like they want to know, are you a Democrat or Republican, or are you Green Party? That's what they want to know. Anything else about you as a person, they don't give a shit about. If you don't agree with their political party, screw off. Though I will say this. Um, over the last 10 or 15 years, I have noticed that, I'm going to say, I'm tired of keeping my mouth shut. And this may get me in trouble, but I have noticed people I know who are Republicans, they're willing to let you do what you want to do. They might have a conversation with you. They might disagree with you, but just because you're a different political party or whatnot, they don't immediately hate you. Whereas I cannot find anyone I know who's a Democrat that gives that same consideration. And that breaks my heart. So there's almost, you're right, there is almost this hive mind cult-like mentality that is sunk into a lot of it. And we need to look at the individual, not the label. And that you're right, political party, that's a label just like anything else. And that's a sad, sad thing. And if you look, at least in America where I'm at, it's gotten redonkulously bad. It really has. But I'm seeing the same thing amongst religions. Like they really they use that religion as just another reason to label a person. Like I grew up in the South. I grew up Southern Baptist. But weirdly, I grew up being taught all people are the same, right? All people are the same. Don't judge them by their skin color. Don't judge them by their gender. Don't judge them by any of this. Right? I supposedly grew up in one of the most racist areas possible. Yet I was taught early. Skin color don't matter. Okay? And I carried that with me my whole life. I really did. I've never met anyone and never worried about them by race or gender. Never in my entire life. So to be in my 40s and to see a world where we're creating reasons to constantly divide ourselves, it saddens me to a point I can't describe. It really does. And I'm trying not to get political here because I don't want to get political. I don't want to religion bash or anything. That's why I'm trying to, focus on, these divisions. And, for the longest time, people's like, well, the powers that be, they want us divided. They want us weakened, blah, 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 yuckity schmackety. And for the longest time, I'm like, you're paranoid. But at the same time, it's getting harder and harder to be like, you're paranoid because you all know, like when it comes to evidence, right? When it comes to look at the facts, I'm the one that has fewer points of evidence to point to. And these people who I used to tell them are crazy are like, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? So I'm sitting here like, you know what? You got to reconsider. There might be something to this. Maybe the powers that be do want us divided. Maybe. Strong chance. And, I always consider it with the new evidence, but I also don't want to sow fear. I don't want to sow dissent, because there's still the possibility, honestly, it's just a bunch of stupid people. Unfortunately, stupid people in large numbers can make a difference. Um, but it is something that I would say we need to be mindful of at the very least. And the best thing I can say from a um, mage's perspective, don't look at the group mentality. Don't look at the herd mentality. Don't, look at the individual and do your own research. Like, we've got a lot of talking heads. Everybody's, like this, and this. And I've told you guys before, if I say something, go check it. Go read the prose edits. Go read the poetic edits. When I tell you something's in there, go read it. If I tell you something's not in a resource, go read it. Check me. Right? Because this gives us two things. A, you can come back and say, hey, Drake, I read this. I was unable to find this. Where's it at? Okay. Either A, I know exactly where it's at. I'm going to tell you. Or B, I'm going to go back and double check it. I have a chance to learn something too. See? Or B, you're going to see it and you're going to learn something. But the thing is, always check it. I'm a big believer in check it. Don't just take someone's word for it. I don't care what news source I watch. I don't take their word for it. I go and do my due diligence and check it. This day and age, however, most people just repeat the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. There's plenty of things that have been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt to be lies that have been said by the media or by other people, and they're still being repeated because no one's taken the time to even look at the fact that it's been proven to be a lie. And those things are problematic. And it's an interesting thing because we're in an area where information is easier to get than ever, because of the internet, and no one uses it. We prefer to flip through cat videos and other stupid shit than educate ourselves, which is mind-boggling to me, if for what that's worth. But that's my hot take, and that hot take and $5 probably won't get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. So take it or leave it. Amazing that it's free. I'll look into it. It's one of the only free ones we have, but it is like arcane senses are so important to everything that I felt that one should be free. It also gives you an idea of the layout of how the courses look and work. So I thought it would be a fair deal. Some people, I've had a lot of people tell me I'm stupid for offering it for free, but I still think it's reasonable. And as long as I can offer it for free, I will. See, get through some of these questions. Some stacked up while I was ranting. Also, give us a thumbs up. Give us a like. Mathis, good to see you can make it. It does help us with that stanky old algorithm thing. Always good to do that. You actually do have a about Christianity. Do you ever work with God in your current practice? I'd like to reach out again, but with your current practice, I felt discouraged. Okay, so yes, actually, I do work with Yahweh or Jehovah, whichever name you wish to use for the Christian deity, and I also do work with Jesus on occasion. It is true. When I left the church originally, there was some bad blood between me and Yahweh, and never really had I'd say bad blood with Jesus per se. And when working on astral travel, soul travel, and evocation and stuff like that, meditation and prayer, I have reached out to Jesus a time or two, and it wasn't long before I decided I wanted to attempt to say my piece would be the better way when it came to Yahweh, because I didn't think there was any reconcile there. I was more say my piece, speak my mind, if you will. And I'm not proud of how this went. I'm really not proud of how this went, because essentially I showed up, I started spewing my mouth, shooting my mouth off, yelling, getting all that, whatever it was, pent up out. And the exact response was, You really needed to get that out. I'm glad you finally got it out. Do you feel better? There was no retaliation, no nothing. Do you feel better? Yeah. Okay. Let's discuss what got you there. And we started discussing what got me to those feelings. And truth be told, a lot of the things that I was upset about was because of my point of view. It wasn't things that were actually done to me. And I felt like shit after that. I'm not gonna lie. I absolutely felt like shit because I was blaming everything on Yahweh. I was blaming everything on someone when everything was my fault in truth. And he never blamed me. Never blamed me. And that really, but after that, I've I've worked with them since with no issues. At no point have they ever given me an issue. At no point have they even tried to convert me for that matter. So yeah, I have worked with them. Um, I got no issues working with them. Um, so yeah, I mean, if you want to reach out with them and connect with them and chat with them, by all means do it. Just because you are on a different path don't mean you're cut off from chatting with them. David Riviera, is God the ultimate state of energy in your experience? If you're talking about is God the ultimate being, I'm going to say no, because when we think of creator gods, Yahweh's definitely one of the creator gods, but there's multiple creator gods. And having the opportunity to openly speak with so many different entities that are creator gods and understanding how they work together, not against each other, this concept of this divine battle, like Odin and Yahweh would fight against each other. No, they actually worked together in creation. It's actually quite fascinating. And I would even say that what we view as divinity, what we view as gods, they're not the ultimate source either, because there were plenty of things before them, and even they will tell you that. Which I actually love the fact that, talking with Yahweh and Odin and other creator gods, that they're willing to talk about that. Because if you look at science, it also lines up. Like there's really wild shit biblically that, like, I would say, like, science and the Bible completely don't line up in any shape, form, or fashion. And then I'm sitting here talking with Jesus or Yahweh, and they're pointing to, well, look at this, look at this, look at this. And you look at it, and there's actually an area in the Bible where there's an entire migration out of Egypt, right? And everybody's like, you can't see that archaeologically. But you realize that our modern timeline is based on the Egyptian timeline. And there's a lot, and I do mean a lot of archaeologists who think the Egyptian timeline is off by a certain, I want to say it's like 500 years, something like that. And that if the archaeological timeline shifts to where they think it should actually fit, and there's plenty of archaeological evidence to support the shift. It's just so far Egypt hasn't shifted it for whatever reason, to my knowledge. They may have shifted it now, but last I read they hadn't. When you shift it, those things do line up. It's really kind of creepy, but really kind of cool. So does that mean everything in the Bible is historical fact? No, no. Does that mean that there are possible historical recordings within those texts along with the myths? Yes, but we see that with a lot of other things too. But no, I don't personally believe it's the greatest singular experience. I don't hold Yahweh on a pedestal any higher than I hold God, like Odin, for example. And you also have to understand, I don't use the word energy the same way a lot of people do, because scientifically, energy has nothing to do with magic. It really doesn't. In fact, the use of the word energy in the way we do, that's also more modern. The term would have originally been more ether, which you've probably heard me use on this channel a bit. I'm trying to get away from using the word energy because, again, scientifically, energy has a very, very different definition. And I've seen way too many snake oil salesmen, mystics, trying to say this is proven by science because, and they start throwing around a lot of buzzwords and misusing scientific terms. So that's kind of a pet peeve for me. Actually, I have considered reaching out to another YouTuber. He did a absolute just trash talk to quantum mystics and how they misuse a lot of those buzzwords. And I thought about reaching out to him and seeing if he would do a roundtable one-on-one with me and discuss it, because I know he don't believe in anything I do. But on the science side, I think the fact that he doesn't believe in it and he's willing to, show where the science terms mean what they actually mean, not how they're colloquially used or how we've pirated them into the mystic arts or the occult. I think it has a lot of value. It really does. Because how we use energy, is that wrong? No. But if we don't understand there's a difference in what the word means scientifically and how we use it, therein lies the problem. Therein is why so many of these healers I do find dangerous, and a lot of these, I'll call them snake oil salesmen, point blank, because they are pirating it and they're trying to scam you into thinking something is scientifically proven when it's not. And that pisses me off. But I hope that answers your question somewhat. Let's see, discipline, the balance. Yes, I think it's wonderful, the unlimited potential of paganism in a like the evolution of faith, taking your faith, add it. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of Christians. I've had pastors actually have me teach their kids. So I mean, it's like mankind has a potential to be far better than we are. We got to remove the lines dividing us. We really do. And I'm starting to see it. Like, I really am. I mean, even on the internet, I'm seeing a lot of preachers who are out there willing to discuss and debate and question. And that's good. Good. Open rhetoric and discussion is a good thing. It really, really is. That's another reason why I don't like anything that leads to policing speech, policing thought. If you ever try to restrict the freedoms and well-being of a person who is expressing their thoughts and their feelings, and ultimately they're truly not harming each other, um, I'm not going to support you. And I do not think speech is harmful. I don't. Sorry. I really don't. I grew up with sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And that's something we really need to get back to. We really need to get back to it. In fact, that's probably the biggest problem being a content creator that I have is I have to tamp down around so many bullshit um, speech control crap. I don't like it. Let's see. Thomas Ledger. I made the statement about apolitical as I could. Also, student nationalists who believe Jesus is a Republican or holds Republican views are a thing, but at the same time, pagan left. Yeah, I mean it's the same both ways. Like we got problems on both sides of the fence, right? I can personally say that like I've had bricks and shit thrown at me because I have a Southern accent, and they immediately assume my political leanings or my religious beliefs. I've genuinely had bricks thrown at me in the city of Seattle for that. Okay. So when we're talking about tolerance, let's just say that on the left side of the fence, I've seen very, very little tolerance. Um, and even though I have spent a large chunk of my life not ever expecting to see tolerance from the right, because of the religious viewpoints, right? Again, I grew up Southern Baptist. Like tolerance and Southern Baptist aren't two things I really put in the same bucket, right? But that being said, um, Southern Baptist ain't the only flavor of Christianity. And I should also say that Southern Baptist that I grew up around doesn't make up the entirety of Southern Baptist either. Like I have since met some absolutely wonderful, kind, and caring Southern Baptists that don't remind me of the ones I grew up around. So, that's just my experience. Like I've been able to talk about anything I do. Even when I was a pagan, I was able to talk about my religion and never got condemned for it. And if I go to the West Coast or something to one of these, let's say Seattle, San Diego, I'm not afforded the same luxury of tolerance. And yeah, that's going to color my view. Now, I do still try to cling very deeply to the individual. And honestly, that's where I keep my sanity. When I walk up and talk to somebody, I don't bring up politics. I don't bring up spirituality, but I'm going to talk to them. I don't care what you look like. I don't care who you are. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to have a good time. You ask me a question, I'm going to answer it. And I don't care what your political leaning is, even if you wear "I'm a Democrat" on your shirt. I don't give a shit. Right? Do I have every reason in the world in my life experience about, oh shit, this is going to suck? I do. But at the same time, I don't do that because I don't want to fall victim to that big group label, right? Uh, I want to treat this person as an individual. I want my interaction with that individual to show them who I am and show me who they are. I want to afford them the same respect that I want, and I work hard to do that. I really do. Now, that's to be said. Does that mean I have ran into problems on this other side? Yes. Notice I say on average, on majority. That doesn't mean this side gets a clean slate. I have met them, and there are some real shitbags. Um, what is it? Is it? I think it's everybody gets together and hates Westboro Baptist Church because let's be honest, they're a hate mongering cult, right? I want to say that's the correct church. Um, And I know we're coming up on an election and everything, and I'm trying not to get this political, but it's also these are some of the best topics to discuss. Look at the individual, not the label. Unfortunately, these are some of the best topics, and I understand you guys are. By the way, thank you all for trying to make it as apolitical and not bashing a religion or anything. I appreciate that. I really do. I really truly appreciate you all handling this maturely and asking your questions maturely. Thank you very much for that. Um, that means a lot to me. Um, See, I'm not a Christian. I'm a pagan. The God of pure love has no name. See, okay, Mathis, I'd actually enjoy getting to reach out to them, especially to bridge the gap between. I had my own similar falling out with the church longer. Yeah, I would encourage it. I really would. Like it was very therapeutic to me. Actually, Odin's the one who actually encouraged me to do it. Interestingly enough, so I thought that was pretty cool. See, Birdie actually grew up in Mormonism, which is a very unique experience that harbored a lot of negative feelings. Thank you for sharing your experience, Drake. I feel empowered to follow my heart in that regard. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. And funny thing on that Mormonism side of it, I know a lot of people do have bad experiences, but like for the most part of my life, have never had a pleasant experience with Mormons. Like they've not bad. I'm not going to call it negative, but annoying is all shit, I will say. And I got to meet an individual when doing ghost hunting one time. Absolutely adore her. I'll call her Wolfie as a joke. That's her nickname. I won't use her real name. I want to respect her privacy. But her and I had probably done 5, 10 investigations. We were going over evidence together. We were always cracking jokes back and forth. We were discussing a lot of metaphysical stuff. We were on an investigation one night, and we were between a break when everybody was in. We are talking, and someone was asking me a question, and Mormons came up, and I kind of rolled my eyes, and I was like, "Oh God, I can't stand them." I was like, "I've never met a Mormon I can be around without them annoying me to the point where I want to put my head through a wall." And she laughs, and she's like, "You realize I'm Mormon?" I'm like, "Yeah, right, whatever." And she's like, "No, seriously." Like, she was going on for a good 5-10 minutes trying to convince me, and it wasn't until another person came in, and Wolfie looked over and said, "Hey, real quick, before anybody says anything else, what's my religion?" And the individual answered, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And to this day, that's an experience I hold very dear to my heart. Okay, first off, it was funny. She was not insulted at all by my reaction, because she understood my reaction. A lot of people have had negative reactions. At the same time, she is a prime example of why I focus on the individual, not the label. Because if I didn't focus on the individual, that is a friendship I would have lost. And to this day, I adore her. She emails me regularly. We don't stay in touch as much as we used to. We don't get to do investigations together, but she emails me on the regular. And she's even said if I do an investigation in her area, she wants to know because she wants to catch up. Or if I'm ever traveling and I'm in her area, she wants to grab some wings or something. I am so grateful for that friendship, right? I'm so grateful for that friendship. And that's just a perfect example of why the labels are a problem. I absolutely adore her. And Wolfie, if you're watching this, hope you're doing well. Immortal, yeah, I got to see the second live. Yes, you do, Immortal. Yes, you do. Yeah, it's good to be back, Immortal, and thank you for everything you did to keep things running while I was gone. See, Math is Southern Baptist is a majority of what I have in my area, and we have both kinds here, the tolerant and the intolerant, very much on an individual. Yeah, and you got to take it at an individual basis, right? It's one of those funny little things. Let's see. Boy, Matt, what's your personal opinion or take on Yahweh? Was he just a storm god incorporated into religious system? I've heard that discussion, and I've not really dove too far in it, because what I do know is when it comes to Yahweh, Jehovah, like I said, there's many names for what many people view as potentially the Christian God. Every time I've used either name, I've gotten results that go well beyond just a simple storm god. Easy peasy. And since I'm not trying to debate or argue which is the right religion, it really it doesn't matter. But if you were to expound upon that concept, and we look at just about any flipping deity we can list, many of these deities are far more than the minor labels we place on them. Most people, for example, don't even know Freya is a goddess of war and magic. They just think she's love and beauty. So these entities are far more than the little tiny boxes we dumb humans try to put them in. So to say that any deity is just some storm god, that in and of itself is so dismissive, because there's not a singular entity out there I can think of that such a dismissive statement would actually apply to anyway, including Thor, who most people would view Thor as a form of a storm god. But if you think Thor's just a storm god, or just a god of protection, or even protection and storms, you haven't even begun to scratch the surface of understanding of the depth of who Thor is. So yeah, I mean, if I look at the larger canvas of entities, I do find that unlikely. I'm not going to say impossible, but I'm going to say unlikely because the larger canvas itself is clearly been distorted by narrow minds. And we also have an archaeological history of other religions just trying to piss away other religions. Because, well, historically, the easiest way to control people is to control their thought. The easiest way to control their thought is to remove their faith. So if you remove faith, you remove a lot of that. Unfortunately, it's is what it is. So since I'm not trying to get into a pissing contest of who is the true faith, it's never been something that bothered me. The way I view it is your faith, is your practice working for you? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, keep on doing it. If it's not working for you, then reevaluate, re-examine, readjust, plot a new course, try it out, see if it functions. That's really how I view it. I don't really care. Just my 2 cents on it, since you asked. Thomas, also, I'm thinking of working with the Fae. I've watched your videos on them, so I know what not to do. That's yeah. I do actually, Thomas. Check out our locals. Make sure you're subscribed to our locals, and potentially make sure you're a supporter, because I know for a fact the supporters are going to start getting some Fae videos for the summer court, starting toward the end of this year. Because if you want to work with the summer court, you want to start at the winter solstice, because that's when the summer court actually, assuming you're in the northern hemisphere, that's when the summer court would take charge in the northern hemisphere, which I'm in the northern hemisphere, so I'm going to line it up with that. And the winter court path working is actually in full testing right now. Both myself and a couple others are actually running through that. So we should start seeing that stuff by the summer solstice. So you're going to start seeing a lot of that. That way you can save yourself some money in those cases too. But I enjoy working with Fae. Can they be pain in the ass? Can they be hard to work with? Absolutely. Can you get yourself burned? Oh yeah. But I've enjoyed it. In fact, one of the individuals working the Winter Fae path working right now, I've seen so much amazing growth in this individual. I wish I could say who they are. I may actually get their permission at some point, but I have seen so much freaking growth in them. I am beyond proud of them. They have come so far since starting that Winter Fae path working that I think I've seen them come the entire time I've known them. Yeah, so I'm really freaking proud of them. Though they'll tell you it ain't been easy on them. Oh man, it ain't been easy on them. I'm in South Korea right now. I'll be honest, my equator line is a little hard. I want to say that puts you in the northern hemisphere, doesn't it? Maybe. I'll have to get my globe out. I'll be honest with you. Great food in South Korea, though. Absolutely some great food. I'm a fat man. I like food. What can I say? See, Mathis, I'd like to say at this point, Thor's the deity I've had the most interaction with. I can understand that. Thor is a great guy. He really is. Weirdly, I did not spend as much time working with Thor in my initial Norse works. So Thor is actually not one of the ones I have the most time with. But at the same time, once I started working with him, I adore the man. I really do. I absolutely adore him. He's definitely not what a lot of people paint him out to be. And he's just such a great guy. He really is. He makes me think of that just down home country boy farmer, without the southern accent, that you can just go get a beer with and have a good time no matter what time of day it is. I love it. Let's see. Oh, I am a fat man. I'm a fat man. I'm not going to lie about it. I call myself fat. I'm working on getting in shape, but right now I'm fat. And every time I've said that, there's somebody up in here saying, "You're not fat. You're the horse shit." I'm fat. I'm in a point that is unhealthy. I call it fat. I'm old school. I'm a fat ass. I'm going to work on that because I want to be healthy. I'll be honest. I don't care what my waistline is. I really don't. I just want to be healthy. But where I'm at, not healthy. So yeah. Don't go emailing me and messaging me all these body positivity horseshit. I don't give a shit. Okay. I'm going to call myself fat. Let's see what we got. See, please leave out any violence. Yeah, please leave out the violence in chat if you can. Mortal, if you remember what you had to delete, private message that one to me, please. What do you think of the Santa Morte entity? That's actually an interesting one because there's a lot of people who debate whether or not it's an egregore or something recently created or not. I've done very little work with her directly. I know a lot of people who have. And one of the reasons I don't work with her too directly is um, when I did work with her, she made it very, very clear that if I was to work with her, she would be the only entity I work with, period. That was no bono. I don't do that. I'm not going to do that. I don't bend the knee. I don't kneel before any entity, much less am I going to give up my freedom to do other workings. Not going to happen. And I've had a lot of other people comment on that after that. Some people are okay with that. I'm not. So I don't personally have a lot of experience with her. So I'm not really the authority to talk on that outside the, this is what she said. And I was like, no, not happening. A lot of the individuals I spoke with talk about using her to get out of trouble for things they knowingly did that were wrong. I can understand the viewpoint, but at the same time, I have an issue with it because, again, you're just trying to pass the buck and sidestep the consequences of your actions when you knew there would be consequences. And I personally don't care for that. So, I'm not going to bash nor prop up either way because I've not done a lot of work with her. So, is what it is. There's a lot of entities I haven't worked with. I can say she's not my cup of tea in the workings that I've had with her. But that doesn't make her a bad entity just because she's not my cup of tea, right? And then there's some people who view her more of a saint than a god. And there's the debate, what's the difference? In all honesty, there's a lot of debate, what's the difference? And I understand that philosophical debate. So, Thomas, what do you mean by ranked? So depending on how you view ranked. So there are dragons that exist that technically are above the 9 rulers. The 2 highest that the dragons talk about in existence, to my knowledge, is what they don't even technically have names. They just refer to them as the dragon and the dragoness. And they're not even dragons that you can evoke in the traditional sense. Like there's a very, very strict process in how to work with them. There's even like locking mechanisms between us and them. And you can't just like, whoop, bypass those. Those are the 2 highest I've worked with. They are not easy to work with by any means. In fact, if you've ever heard me talk about the ritual that knocked my ass out for 72 hours or so, it was that one. And that is something that will probably be in Dragon Magic 104. Well, it is Dragon Magic 104. That section is actually Dragon Magic 104. So those would be the 2 highest. As far as if I understand the word ranked correctly, because they don't have military ranks, that's for sure. Although it'd really be fucking hilarious to meet a Master Chief Dragon. And I say that from a Navy sense, not a video game sense. Anyone who knows a Navy Master Chief, you know what I'm talking about. So I'm speaking specifically from a Navy sense. Right. 4-star general. Honestly, Ingus gives me 4-star general vibes. I'm not gonna lie. Ingus gives me 4-star general vibes. He really does. That's pretty good. I like that. Oh shit. Thanks, Immortal. What's your opinion / practices for Samhain? I absolutely adore Samhain. I really do. So one of the things that I was wanting to do before my life went into a tornado shit show was I was wanting to do a lot of shadow work, share how I do my shadow working process, and actually share the process that I go through. So during October, I dedicate the month to shadow work and doing a lot of shadow work as well as ancestral work and stuff like that, leading up to a conclusion during Samhain. And for Samhain, I do try to use it to tie up the ending of that month-long shadow work because I try to do a deep dive shadow work twice a year, regardless of if I think I need it. But I also want to do a lot of ancestor work on Samhain. The bulk of Samhain for me is actually tied to ancestor work. So a lot of my mentors and family members, my original mentor in martial arts and philosophy, he was like a dad to me. I always make sure to honor him. Dear friends to me they are my family in truth. Like, I don't believe family is blood. I believe family is something deeper than that. These are brothers who I've lost over the years. And if you actually look at the group of friends that I would view as family, I'm the last surviving asshole. So I make sure to reach out to contact them to honor them in some way on Samhain. My goddaughter who recently passed, got to add her to that list now, don't I? So Samhain for me, it's about a lot of ancestor work. It's connecting with those that have passed on, letting them know how I'm doing, see how they're doing, that kind of thing. I do tie up the shadow work on Samhain night officially, but it's a small part of that night, right? I try to dedicate it to the ancestor side, and I try to enjoy it in some way. That's the bulk of what I do. I'm a pretty simple guy. Now, I do also do specific rituals for each of them, also on their birthdays, whenever I can, and remember them. So, and there's certain things that as a group, the Valentines we used to celebrate, and I also remember them on those specific days. But Samhain is a nice day where I do click into doing that. Great question. Great question. I'm trying to answer it without bawling because Tina's still very near and dear and tender because that just happened. So, but yeah, I'm trying to hold it together here. Great question, though. Great question. What's your general thoughts on Carl Jung? I find some of his ideals interesting. I've always enjoyed psychology in a lot of different ways. And Jung's ideals are definitely fascinating. They seem to hold water more than not most of the time when you apply them. But as with anything, you've got to take it as a measured lens. You can't take it as a hard law. And psychology definitely is one where it's hard to take anything as a law because so many different things do happen. Now, there are a lot of people who look at Carl Jung and a lot of his ideals into the subconscious, into shadow work, and that perhaps even like the goetic entities, they're not entities, they're parts of our subconscious. And I did a video on that as well. And it's very probable. I started my magical career dealing with entities as a part of the subconscious. Due to personal experiences, I have started to lean to the other side. They're not subconscious entities. But of course, at the end of the day, I can also say it doesn't really matter one way or the other, because if you're getting results from your workings, whether it's self-hypnosis or an external entity, it doesn't really matter because you're still making the progress that you're seeking. Um, just as a what for? Immortal, if somebody's spamming the chat with the same thing and you have to keep removing it, you are free to block them. I don't know what it is, but I've noticed two persons. I think it's the same name. Or admin, whoever else is here. So, let's see, where are we? I got lost. See, sci-fi fantasy girl. Who would be the best one to work with to heal my eyesight? Doctors say there's nothing they can do. Marbus or Raphael or someone else. I'll admit, me and Raphael, we've had our differences. Anyone who took the evocation course will know that him and I have patched things up emotionally. Actually, I was damn near in tears on that video when I recorded it. I actually considered re-recording it so I wouldn't be crying during the video, but I thought, let's keep it authentic. I honestly would recommend Raphael. I think Raphael is an amazing candidate for this. One thing I will say, and this, it's try it. Okay. It's not proven or anything. This is my thoughts. But as someone who has had eye problems a lot in their life, even had eye surgery, you watch this channel, I had glasses. I got no problem. Like, I know that my eyes will probably get to the point where I need glasses again. No issues. I actually enjoyed having glasses. But look at your diet. Like, I have found that since shifting my diet a little bit, my eyesight has improved massively, and I do mean massively. One of my eye doctors, like, I had those little floaty things at one point. I can't remember what she was calling them. But she told me to cut back on carbohydrates and everything. And at that point in time, I was still eating shitty. And when I went carnivore, I haven't had a floater in my eye forever. But my eyesight overall has improved quite greatly. And I've heard a lot of people who go keto, carnivore say similar. Does that mean it's going to fix your eyesight? No, it does not. Does that mean it could potentially help? Maybe. So you might want to consider it, but I would definitely look at Raphael. I think Raphael is a great choice for that, for what that's worth. And I'm glad you're looking at doctors. Everybody here knows I do not replace doctors with entities. So I'm glad you are seeing doctors about it. And if they don't think there's anything that you could do, I would reach out to Raphael and maybe examine the foods you're eating, do some research on that. Do your own research on that, by the way. Don't just take my word for it. But yeah, entity-wise, Raphael's a good pick. Meg, thanks for sharing your practice. No problem, no problem, no problem. I'm so sorry for your lost streaks. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Meg. Let's see, Meg, still processing through some grief on my side and thinking of honoring the process. The Samhain, thanks. It really does help. It really does. Like I said earlier, either at the first stream or this one, where like I'm still processing. I'm still working on this. And I really truly think that Samhain and that is actually going to be something that's really going to help. I know it has in the past. So yeah, if you're struggling with some grief that's still close at hand, definitely take some time to honor them, remember them. My advice is to remember them and celebrate their life. Okay. I'm not a big proponent of just mourning, because if we just mourn, we get lost in this like sorrow spiral of woe is me, they're lost, I miss them, blah, 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 and that's not a good thing. It is okay to miss them. It is okay to mourn them, but you want to celebrate them. You want to remember the good. You don't want to end it on a low note. You want to celebrate. You want to feel the joy of having that opportunity to know them, to love them, to care for them. And you want to celebrate all those times that you had together. Okay? Make sure you do that. Don't just sit there and like wallow in the sorrow, because that's something like I've done it in the past too. I think everyone's guilty of it. And you want to lift yourself up and you want to live and you want to celebrate them, because they're not going to want us to sit around and cry. That's my 2 cents. So hope that helps you a little bit. What are your thoughts on vampire magic? Well, that would entirely depend on how you're using it, because depending on the traditions and how it's used, I myself have identified probably 4 different variants of people who use the term vampire magic. Probably the most common one is people who siphon energy from another in order to apply it to their own magical workings. Um, what's my opinion on it? If you're a magician or a practitioner who doesn't have the balls, the oomph, or the juice to do it yourself, without preying on someone else, eh. It's I don't really think highly of it in that particular cases. Now, at the same time, let's look at the other side of that fence, because that's just magicians preying on other people, right? And I said there's multiple kinds. Well, the other largest category falls into a section where you're dealing with the vampire communities. And the vampire communities, there's the modern vampire community. There's communities built around, Father Sebastian's vampire community comes to mind. He's part, for a while, he was back in the 80s. I think he was part of the modern vampire community as it's coming up. But, they had their issues. Fine. Don't worry. Anyways, point being, he's wrote several books on his particular tradition of vampiric magic and stuff, and it doesn't necessarily utilize the preying of things in the same way. Of course, the modern vampire community, you look into categories of individuals like Michelle Belanger, for example. She did her Psychic Vampire Codex, where, yes, there's a taking of sorts, but it's only from willing givers. And some of those practices, I do know people in both, well, actually, all those communities, unfortunately, or not unfortunately, depending. And I've seen some pretty significant results. So I'm not going to say it's bullshit, obviously, but those are my opinions. When it comes to taking something from someone that's not yours, I'm never a proponent of that. The modern vampire community, or, well, I should say, at least back in the 90s, taking energy from an individual without permission, they equated that to assault. And honestly, it's hard for me to say it's not. It really is. So, I mean, I'm not going to get into an ethics debate, because everyone's going to have their own different viewpoint. But I've seen some good things happen with it. I've seen people misuse it in a lot of ways, and I've seen it backfire on people in bad ways. So, I mean, research it, consider it, and like anything else, test it, see if it works for you would be my best thing. It's not one I cover on here because I do have a lot of friends in the vampire communities and stuff, and I try to respect their privacy and the privacy of those communities, because there has been a lot of hate and violence directed at those communities that is unwarranted. And there's at least 2 of my friends I've actually tried to talk with about possibly getting to come on the channel for an interview and try to bridge some understanding, get some people who can talk into it about better. So far, no luck, and I don't blame them. I don't wish to endanger people, but that's just my 2 cents on it. So, I don't know about his take on the Goetia being part of ourselves. That's why I love him. He opens my mind to ideals I never would have thought. Thank you for yourself. No problem. No problem, Lil. Unless you're immortal. Immortal done something good. Thank you. No problem. Now, also, Lone Wolf, real quick. Well, since Lone Wolf did say preach it, energy vampires are disgusting. I want to be very clear. There's a difference in an energy vampire and what most people would think of as a vampire, right? There's a very difference. These are two words that most people try to use them interchangeably, and they are not. So, for what people view as vampires, these are an individual, for whatever reason, their body does not naturally produce enough actual life force, energy, ether, whatever we want to call it, vita. I don't care. There's so many freaking words that's been thrown around throughout the generations, that they seriously suffer health issues, right? And they do need to get that source from someplace else. Sometimes it can be from an animal, sometimes it can be from a donor. But on large, I'd say 90 to 98%, these people only take ambient energy that does not affect a single other person, does not have any ill effects on a person, right? And if they do take from a person, it is a willing donor type person, right? Completely separate issue from energy vampire. Energy vampires are people who literally just take from people. They don't have a need for it, and they take without permission. And these people are, honestly, I'm with Lone Wolf. They're very much just like a damn parasite, and many of us have probably met them. These are the gossips, the drama queens. You talk to them, and like you can talk and you can gossip with friends, and you come out, you're happy, you're energetic, you laughed, you had a good time, right? These are the people that when you do that same thing around them, you walk away drained. And yeah, um, it comes across very predatory. That's the only way I can say it. I'm not a fan of it. Just my 2 cents for what it's worth. But I do want to separate the two, because when it comes to actual vampires and the vampire community and what they suffer, because their existence can be painful, to say the very least. I have sympathy there. And I also highly have great respect for their ethics. On the other hand, that category, yeah, parasites, shitbags, don't like them. Um, and I'm trying to figure out a good way to do a series on how to divide that, separate that, and discuss that. Because honestly, I've met so many wonderful people in the vampire communities that I truly think that's something that needs to be talked about. I just haven't found a way to talk about it well. And that's one reason I'm wanting so badly to get some of my friends on the channel, because I think they could actually articulate it perhaps better than I can. But it's something I'm working on. Maybe one day I'll pull it off. I don't know. I've worked with Persephone a few times, but not a lot. I enjoyed when I worked with her, but not a whole lot. Usually it deals with season changing is when I worked with her, unless it was for a client. So she's not an entity I work with a lot. I'll just be honest. I'm not, but anyway, would be a good authority for that one. Some of my working with her was through Hades, because I actually did work with Hades quite a bit for a while, and those two are quite adorable together. It's actually, I love watching her keep him in line somewhat. See, Thomas, as an occult magician, do you see the cult imagery / practice in American media and Hollywood? I've heard some people on occult YouTube would care less about conspiracies, say it's obvious. There's a lot of symbolism in practically everything in the world. Occultism in Hollywood, you know, there's symbols, there's movies. Do people in Hollywood practice in the occult? I'm sure they do. Is it something that's conspiratorial? I don't know if it ranks up there. I really don't know if it quite ranks up there. It would depend on what you mean specifically. Um, I've heard a lot of people, they're using occult practices to program us through TV shows and what they show us. I don't buy into that, because in truth, we still have free will, and you have the choice of what you consume in your media. You have the choice in where you spend your time, and you have the choice to think about what you saw and actually be mindful and process it and discuss it. Now, I would agree that we are just slammed with so much social media. Um, that we rarely have time to think about what we saw. We rarely have time to enjoy the joke. Like George Carlin, I loved him as a comedian, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy. But George Carlin, I really loved because he was a very intellectual comedian. Like he would just put it out there and he'd get you thinking. Truth be told, a comedian like George Carlin, I don't think would do as well today because it's just bam, 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 bam. There's no time to sit and think. In fact, we're almost trained not to think anymore. And that's kind of the downside. I'd be more worried about the fact that we're almost taught, even in school, to not think than I would be anything Hollywood's putting on TV. If that makes sense. I would say the best thing we could do is actually put more effort into thinking. And because when I was in school, they taught us how to think, not what to think. And that's something I'm grateful that my dad and my grandfather pushed, as well as my mentor. They always had me to evaluate, look at, and think and examine. And that's something we really don't do. I mean, look at how we talk about even, look how people talk about religions or candidates. When you ask them their reasons, they don't have a reason. Or if they do have a reason, it's something as dumb as because it's not the other guy or it's not the other religion. That's not a reason. That's an emotional reaction. Like seriously, if you're going to draw a hard line, you really need to know why that line's there. And if somebody asks that question, you should be able to explain that. And that's why I never try to draw a hard line somewhere if I've not sat down and truly thought it through, so that if I'm asked, I can explain my stance. Because if I can't explain my stance, I've never actually sat down and thought about it. And yeah, I would say we need to think about it more, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. All right, guys, we are at an hour and 30, so definitely the internet held up. I definitely enjoyed this. I'm going to hop off here, though. I got a wife in the other room and dinner, so I'm actually going to go have some dinner. Hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I will see you all Monday evening for Magical Coffee Hour. Again, so yes, thank you for welcoming me back. Thank you, everybody, for your well wishes. I had so much fun. I've missed this. I really have. Everyone have a great weekend. All right. Take care and good night.